you considered the messages your outfits send? What do you think your clothes say about you? See, style is about the clothes, but it's not really about the clothes. Every day you make choices about what you're going to wear, but what are you communicating? Welcome to Above and Beyond Style. I'm your host, Maria DiLorenzo, and in 2019, I founded MFD Style, where I provide a unique, intuitive approach to personal styling for those ready to embrace a more meaningful look. With this podcast, I'll uncover key elements of where spirituality, psychology, and style intersect, revealing how you can make intentional wardrobe choices that reflect who you really are. So let me ask you, are you ready to transform into your authentic self? Then it's time. Come with me on this journey, and together we'll take your style above and beyond style. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Above and Beyond Style. Again, this is season 2, where I have brought in such a cool variety of experts, industry specialists. It just feels like this really rich idea of grouping of people who have contributed to this conversation around style. And I'm really, really thrilled to introduce you to today's guest, because hopefully she won't be brand new to you. We actually have had the great pleasure of sharing a podcasting platform together before, so we'll talk about that. But today I am really excited to welcome Janika, or who I affectionately call Jan. So Janika LeMaitre is a certified consultant specializing in personal brand strategy, business etiquette, and reputation self-management. She guides her clients on how to build confidence when presenting themselves in their professional world, online and in person. Now, additionally, Jan offers hourly advice and short and long-term project consulting services. Her clients are entrepreneurs, executives, and go-getters who understand that their brand is valuable. So like a rough diamond, her mission is to help her clients polish every facet. Her goal is to help you define the business of being you. How much do I love that? Oh my gosh, Jan, welcome to Above and Beyond Style.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a fan of your podcast, so I'm really, I feel so grateful. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's so wonderful because, again, perhaps you recognize Jan's voice because she and I actually shared season 2 of her amazing podcast called Polish Your Persona, where we dug into the whole concept of the art of dressing. So if you haven't yet listened to that season, I want you to stop right now, go back and go listen to all the good content, because today we'll probably build a bit on some of the conversations that we've had in the past. So what a privilege that I get to now have you on my podcast. So thank you for that. Jan, I want our listeners to know a little bit more about you and to get to understand a bit more of your background and your own entrepreneurial journey in this really unique space that you occupy as this personal brand strategist. So can you tell us a little bit about you?
So interesting that you're asking me about this right now. I just explained it all to my sister this morning, who lives in Australia, and we're 12 hours apart. So I said, I hope you don't mind, but this is what I'm doing right now. And she said, well, could you tell me a little bit more about it? I don't understand. And I then it went into the blue ocean strategy. Has anyone ever heard of that? So basically, I am swimming in an ocean by myself with maybe a couple of other personal brand strategists sprinkled in there. And the question I always get is, how did you figure out that's what you wanted to do? So here is what I say, and I'm going to give you the long answer. That way you have a really great understanding of how I got here. And I will say I was about 16 when I knew I had to travel the world in style, right? I did not want to backpack like every other Australian usually does. I felt like I needed to see the world, but stay in hotel rooms and do that. And how was I going to do that? I needed to work in some sort of industry that allowed me to. So I said to my parents one day in the kitchen, I want to become an airline hostess that travels the world. And they looked at me and I was holding my breath because, you know, when you make an announcement to
Yes.
your parents, you never really know how they will react. So they looked at me and said, well, you'll probably have to study hospitality and go to hospitality school. That's when, and so that's when I knew that's it. That's my mission. And I managed to work my way, worked numerous jobs in various hotels, like the Sheraton, the boutique hotel, the Chifley, and Cable Beach Club Resort up north in Australia. Then I eventually turned 21, applied for Emirates Airlines, and I got in. What I learned is these skills were transferable from industry to industry, airline, tourism, hospitality, understanding great etiquette and knowing how to present yourself in a professional and polished manner. And it really came down to, well, if I can do this, I can do it again. So I then was sponsored to work for the Four Seasons Hotel here in Boston. And it's actually how I managed to relocate and get over here. They gave me a visa. They helped me get a visa. So I'm back in hospitality. And then the hours weren't great. I wanted to switch and I ended up moving into retail. Retail, same thing. I pivoted, but the same core soft skills were required. And that was how to present yourself in a professional and polished manner, understanding great etiquette when it comes to business and customer service. So if I could do that between these three industries, how else can I do this? And so after the pandemic hit, it had been a couple of, well, it'd been a couple of months and I said to myself, oh, I don't know if I'm going back to work. This is going to be interesting because I'm forced to stay out of work. My mother-in-law had moved in with me, and I know everybody has their own interesting story around what happened with the big shift in their lives. Mine was a bit more of a aha moment. And that was, how can I create a business where I am not necessarily working for a company, but working from my laptop, from my cell phone, and being able to provide some sort of service where people could really see an impact on their lives and themselves, whether it be professionally or personally. And I kept thinking, and I came back around to it. Well, what is that? How does that look? And how do I create the concept of services offered? And that's really where I dug my heels in and said, I'm going to figure this out. I got certification to with the Protocol School of Washington, just because I was fascinated by etiquettes and protocols. It's a really big part of all of these industries and actually many more, which I've learned. And then I became certified with the British School of Excellence. So understanding etiquettes around the world became something I just was fascinated with and interested to share with others. But I didn't necessarily want to just teach etiquette. I figured out that what I do really well and how I can help others is by guiding them on how to pivot and rebrand yourself. And this key phrase of personal brand, it's something that it's really valuable these days. And if you know that it's valuable, you're already one step ahead of everyone else. So what is a personal brand, and how is it that you know, why would you take it seriously? Well, if you picture yourself like a product, right? Coca-Cola. When you think of Coca-Cola, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Maria, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
I think of the red can or the bottle.
Yes. You think of that beautiful writing, Coca-Cola. And so they have this, you have this image that comes to your mind, no matter where you are around the world. If you're online, if you're just talking about it, you think of that Coca-Cola red and that white writing. This is an interesting, the reason why I point that out is because as we've transferred our worlds into the digital realm, you are visible to so many more people, and you don't necessarily think of the scale that it might be happening at. So what does it take to really figure out how can you intentionally make an impression on other people? What can you do to control that? Some things, of course, are out of your control.
Right.
However, what can you do? And how can you do that? So that's where I step in, because what I like to do is I see the full landscape. I look at every possible avenue where you have visibility, where it may be in person, it may be online, or it could be just someone talking about you. So what does that look like? Where are you? Where are you seen? And then how is that translated? So style, and I think this is why you and I had such a great fluid conversation with every topic for Polish Your Persona Season 2. The reason I think that style is so much a big component is because the way you present yourself physically, and even in a photograph, the way you style yourself, it is interpreted. And then there are these words, these thoughts that come along with it that other people, when they see you, they start thinking about you. And again, that's just the style and the presentation aspect, clothing. But the reason I think etiquette is so much of a big part of this is because the way you treat people, how do you respond to certain scenarios? How do you show up when it may be through an email communication or just by telephone correspondence? What does your voicemail message sound like? What are you saying? How is it coming across? So there are other little aspects that you just may not think of. And what I do is I piece it together so it makes sense, like a puzzle, like a rough diamond. What I do is I go and I start polishing each facet so that no matter what it is that you do, you know what the message is that you want to send out to the world. And you start doing that again with intention.
Jan, this is so rich. Like, first of all, thank you for giving us the context of how you came to today, because I think it's an important story to understand the influence that your life has taken to the choice that you've made to want to accompany people in this space. And as you just use the word intention, like to really do it in a way that can transform their life. I mean, really give them. And much of what I talk about around authenticity and really coming to kind of know and understand yourself is much of the same work that you're doing. You're helping people uncover what are these aspects of you and your personal brand that deserve to be in the world for people to know and understand and experience. Let's just take a little polishing cloth, right? And start to really hone in on all these specific areas. And I love that you gave it's not just the big stuff. And we're going to get to the self-presentation, clothing, wardrobe, style, all of that, but it's these little things. I love that. Those examples that you gave about the voicemail or the way the correspondence in an email, like all of that matters. And my question back to you is, So much of the work of this podcast and of my work is about helping people come to intimately know themselves at a level where they feel comfortable and safe
Mm,
with sharing that with the world. So, my
mm,
question for you, and answer at whatever level is comfortable, is
sure.
can you tell us how your personal brand exemplifies or reflects who you really are?
Mm. I, I love this question because when I started my consulting business, that was what I was trying to figure out. How do
Yeah.
I work step by step with someone so I can build a frame of sort of sessions? What does the sequence of events look like when you work with me each session? And I
Yeah.
really feel like one of the first things I I want to figure out with somebody is I want to figure out who are you as a person and what's happening all around you with family, work,
Mm.
hobbies, travel, you name it, what education, what are you passionate about, all of that. Once I learn that, then I dig into what is your mission in with yourself in
Yeah.
life, separate to your business. And then what is your vision for what do you
Mhm.
see in the future? How does that work? And what are the words you put around that? Then what are your core values? Because
Right.
sometimes you don't necessarily think about that on a daily basis. But when you put all of these words onto one sheet of paper, and I go through a workbook that I've created, it's very helpful because then you have these words that you can say, okay, one of mine is polished, right?
Mhm.
So every time I do anything, I think of the word, is it polished?
Yeah.
Is that it? Is it, what are my standards? That's another thing that I think of, which is part of core values,
Mhm.
is doing things with integrity. So am I responding and am I doing it with integrity? So I'm not letting this other person hang on whatever it is that they're waiting on from me. And so anything that I approach, I make sure I look at this list and I say, I need to remind myself of these words because
Mm.
this is ultimately who I am, what I believe, and I've broken it down into such a simple type of package where I can now use this moving forward through every aspect. So again, when you think of Coca-Cola, you think of red, you think of the white writing. It's now time to think about yourself as a product, as a business, as a brand, because if you don't do this for yourself, it will just get lost in
Mhm.
the abyss and there won't be consistency the way you can help create that across every platform online or in person. And what does again, I just keep using Coca-Cola because I think it's such a
Sure.
well-recognized international brand. When you think of wherever they're visible, they always have people laughing. They always have people that are feeling refreshed, in a scene that is sort of happy. Or they've got, even if you're in the North Pole with the bear, like the
Right.
bear's happy to drink it. And so you think of their advertising, you think of these words, refreshing, fun, gathering, just something that a name you can rely on. It's always going to be a
Mhm.
staple. So wherever they are, they will make sure they use these words, the colors, the font, everything is intentional the way they brand it. And of course, there's a big sales and marketing PR team all behind that.
Sure.
However, when you work with me, right, you are working with me because you're trying to figure all of this out before you start hiring
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 other consultants. So if you're not sure what your personal brand is, then if you hire someone who's a social media consultant, right? They start doing your Instagram for you. They start making your email marketing
Templates.
templates. Pregnancy brain. It slipped my mind. But if you hire someone and you cannot provide them with the guidance and the definition behind exactly what it is you are looking for, then you've just wasted all of this time, energy, and your money. So what I do is I help you define that landscape, understand what it is you're looking for, so that when you do need to go to a consultant for perhaps your professional headshots or profile pictures, or you need to visit a personal stylist and wardrobe consultant, you will go there to that. You will contact them knowing exactly what you need from them and the verbiage that goes along with that. And I would like to add to that. I think that if you are creating a personal brand, think of people that you know do it really well. And just watch them. Really pay attention to how do they show up? How do they present themselves? And what type of feeling do you get? What type of words do you put around that? And then you start to understand, okay, this is what a personal brand is.
Yeah. This is such helpful information. It really is, because it gives us this larger, and I like what you've said about packaging it in a way. It's sort of bringing it in cohesively to give you, when you were listing sort of your words, right, and some of the language that is connected to your own personal brand, I think about it a little bit like your own personal manifesto, right? Like there's this, that's what the word came to mind as you were describing it. And I was thinking, yeah, how beautiful, whether you share that specifically with the world or not, that little manifesto is alive in all the ways that you speak, the ways that you eat, the ways that you interact with people, much like you're talking about through the etiquette process, the way that you dress, the way that you behave, right? So there's all these layers of your manifesto that, and this is my word, not yours, clearly, but that get played out into the world. And what I'm hearing you say is about, there has to be consistency there among all of these channels. And not just that it's consistent, but that it's authentic and true, that it's real for whoever you are. And when it's inauthentic, my guess is everybody knows an inauthentic brand, right? Where they're like, no, this is not something I want to invest in, engage with, be around. And likewise, you probably have a very felt sense in your body about what is authentic and resonating with someone who has that authenticity in their own personal brand. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I think you've explained it really well. I would say that once you know what your personal brand is, once you can decipher that code, you then feel a lot more grounded with yourself. You have this sense of, I would say, what's the right word?
It feels like truth.
Yes, knowing your, I like that, truth. Yes, because you've really taken the time to explore and finesse how it is you see yourself and how you want others to see you. So everything you go and do moving forward, you will be definite with how you interact, how you present, how you show up. It's so important. And you'll feel so much more confident, very much more. I don't know if that made sense.
No, it did. And honestly, it makes me think of, I talk about in a couple of my episodes about authentic style is derived from authentic self, right? It has to come from that. So I've had several great questions and listeners who have posed this question around, well, how do I get at my authentic self? Right. And I have a host of different guests this season who are kind of answering that question from their lens.
Mm,
And I think you are also answering that question about how do I get at my authentic self? It's really digging deep into some of these
mm,
core principles and questions about who I am, how do I want to show up in the world, and
mm,
what represents that? What are the
mhm,
words, the behaviors, the physical clothes, all the things that look at this full package that you've just described to really give that cohesiveness about like, I am this. And I
mm.
am complex and interesting and nuanced, right? I'm not just one simple thing. And as simple as Coca-Cola may feel, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually, as a human, I'm much more um, again complex. There's many
Yes.
more layers to me, and I think that's what's really beautiful about the work that you do, because you're holding space for all of these different facets of this human
Mm,
person and are trying to make connections and bridges there so that people can feel more confident in who they are,
mm,
because there's no question that the world as it exists today, there's a lot of pain and a lot of shame around authenticity, around people being who they really are and
mm.
feeling safe in whatever country they may live in to express that. And so I want to dig in now a little bit about, you've worked with people, I
Mm.
imagine, all over the world
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have really helped them polish their
Mm,
brand, polish their persona, give them this sense of like, let's really look at all these different aspects of you. And I'd love to know, in this work with your any one client or multiple clients, where did style intersect some of the work that you did with them? Because obviously this is a podcast that is really looking at style and that external representation of ourselves. So I'm curious about your experience with clients in and around that space.
So I really feel like, and actually I'm going to highlight an episode that you and I covered
Mm,
in my podcast for Polish Your Persona season 2. We talk about building a core uniform under each dress code uh, example
mhm,
and what that looks like. So when you have a bit more confidence about how you want to show up and have those words to help you build that, oh, stylish, classic, bold, whatever the words are, uh, it helps you then start figuring out, for whatever medium it is that you are showing up in, well, if I can determine what my core uniform is, then wherever I'm at, I'm going to know the basics of how I want to dress and put myself together in a style that really works. And so one of my clients is a TV personality. And so when she dresses for that particular audience, which is, it's sort of, but there are different mediums because
mhm,
she'll be on site for what and it's like racing cars. So
mhm,
it's a bit more casual, but she brings her taste and style. So there's leather jackets, jeans kind of thing. And then on on when she's not on location and she's
mhm.
in the studio presenting, then she'll put herself together with bright colors. That's certainly one that she loves, bright colors. And then there are those simple rules around that she likes to follow. For example, whenever wearing dresses, they must be tailored, they must be
Yeah.
steamed pressed, they must be, fitted, not contour, but not bodycon, but fitted
Mhm,
and tailored.
mhm,
And then always a pair of high heels, and the heels are always trendy and modern and closed toe. So that there's a certain set of rules that she will follow, and that's how she brings her style to each type of dress code. Now, another client of mine is in sort of wealth management, where and so this is a good example because they're two polar opposite industries,
mhm.
right?
Totally.
And so when she's meeting with clients on Zoom or in person, really depending on who it is that she's meeting, she has to make sure that she presents herself in a dress code that reflects that person and the ethnicity, sort of the country that they're coming from, and making sure that she's respectful. And the dress expectations in her industry, they are very different and they're a bit more strict. So how do you bring style to that? But by building a core uniform, knowing the colors, knowing sort of accessories you want to wear. So for her, it's silk scarves, and she plays with different designs. And then, pearl earrings, or just really classic things, but figuring out how can I make these a bit more, if you want to bring a little bit of edge to it, then maybe you do Baroque pearl earrings that are dropped with some sort of articulate design. And perhaps when you wear that suit, instead of it being a typical sort of shape, it's a peplum instead at the waist. So there are ways to incorporate your style depending on what industry you're in, and how much research you do in advance for who your target audience is. Because if you don't know who you're presenting to, and you also can't figure out how you should dress for that in advance, your style will not impact the other person in the manner perhaps with which you want it to. So it's really important that you, I would say, come back knowing your target audience, and then figuring out, okay, my core uniform around that. And your core uniform, it should feel natural. It should help you feel confident, and it should also make you happy. And one other thing is, should always be comfortable.
Yes. Yes.
Comfort is a big deal for me. If it's not comfortable, the material's not right. If it's something you have to keep fidgeting with, put it away. Just don't even wear it, because you will not be focused on what it is that you want to accomplish with whoever it is you're interacting with.
This is super helpful. Thank you for those examples, because I know you and I have talked about in specific industries that you have to be mindful of who you're with, right? And sort of who you're in relationship with in this professional space, and how your wardrobe can and should be respectful of that relationship, right? It doesn't mean abandoning your personal style. It means having a certain level of consideration for, as you just mentioned, whether it's different ethnicities, religious practices, a host of different things that as you're working in relationship with people, whatever your business or industry, you have to have this awareness for your respect and responsibility in showing up. And you and I talk about this a little bit in your podcast as well in season 2. And I remember saying, there always is this dance between honoring who you are and your personal style, right? However that looks. And really now you've harnessed that, you've identified that, you're totally embracing that, but also recognizing there has to be some fluidity and flexibility in that, particularly in the professional realm. And I want you to talk a little bit more about this, because I think this is why you're explaining how wardrobe is important when you're developing your personal brand and having the ability to have it be flexible. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I think flexibility is so key, and preparation is also very key. So especially, women these days, and with dress codes changing and evolving, and it's become a lot more casual, but now it's starting to shift back. I will say I'm starting to notice that. And I feel like if you're able to look at your calendar in advance, this is a big deal for me. I'm a big planner. I like to, even if it's just 3 days in advance, and you're a busy person. And most people would say that they're quite busy, right? If you can figure out and carve out time, perhaps it's 30 minutes on a Sunday night, or 30 minutes or 15 minutes on a Wednesday night. look at your calendar and say to yourself, okay, I have meeting XYZ in a consecutive order. I'm meeting with the heads of each department. I'm meeting with 3 different clients and they're on Zoom. You know, there's different scenarios, right? And then I have a lunch. Perhaps it's al fresco at a place that's casual down the street. But then you've got a networking event after work later that night. And so what is going to be something that's appropriate to wear for all of these meetings, plus the lunch, plus the networking event? And so when you start thinking about your day in advance, you and I talk about this decision fatigue.
Right.
Such a real thing. That's a whole episode, and I'm not going to go too far into that right now, but it's true. You get decision fatigue in the morning if you have not figured out your day in advance and you don't know what to wear. Have you ever, and I'm asking you as a listener, have you ever been in front of your wardrobe and you have a wardrobe plenty of or full of lots of wearable clothes for every occasion, but you stood there and you were paralyzed because now you're on a time crunch and 10 minutes has gone by and you can't figure out what to wear, and oh, your hair isn't working either, and goodness me, I can't find my left shoe. It becomes a little bit of this state of, you go into a state of frenzy. So you're not setting yourself up appropriately for the day and what's to come. When you can take out all of that decision making in such a short time frame right before you need to get dressed, knowing your outfits in advance. I have a rolling rack, and so I actually, and you know what, you can get these from Bed Bath & Beyond. You can order them on Amazon. A rolling rack is a really great add to your wardrobe, right? Wherever you put it, maybe it's somewhere that, well, depending who you live with and if they don't mind you putting your things in a certain place or a guest room or something. But having a rolling rack and then itemizing what you're going to wear in advance, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, whatever days you work, whatever times you work, putting those outfits in order, putting your shoes out that you're going to wear with them. I even go as far as sometimes putting my undergarments out, because if you have that ready and set up for you, and even your accessories, if you wear a belt or you wear jewelry or something, you have it all there. And then in the morning, you go and you just put that on and you say to yourself, this is the hairstyle that I'm going to wear with it. And maybe you know, it's a low bun with a part in the middle, which is now one of my go-tos, or a French twist, or, you know, just straight blown out. And if that's something you can figure out again in advance and plan accordingly, you will be so much more confident. You will be so much more prepared to take the bull by its horns, right?
Now,
I love that saying.
let me dig into this, because I think you are so right about this, about anticipating these needs and really giving yourself the upper, like that level, that advantage, right? Why do you think that matters?
Oh, I think it matters because it makes you, the way you bring energy. And I think this is why you and I connect so well, because we are both quite spiritual in our own ways. When I think of energy, I think of how it affects other people, and then how it can sort of like a rebound effect come back to you, right? So think about when someone is constantly negative. Do you want to be around that person? Maybe they're always having something that's going on in their lives, and the way that they bring that energy, you just want to avoid.
Yeah.
But if you're feeling good about the way you dressed that morning, you had extra time to go and get that iced chai vanilla from wherever your favorite place is, and then you start to feel this good energy.
Yeah.
Other people around you feel
Mm.
the good energy that you're bringing with you, and you then can somewhat control
Yeah.
how you respond to certain scenarios. And if you're having a day where you didn't prepare yourself and you're sort of running late because you just couldn't figure out what to put on, and you didn't get that great drink that you wanted, and you
Yeah.
got to wherever you were going and you're sort of again in a frenzy, and not 100% on your A game.
Yeah.
I like that phrase, your A game. Uh, you then are going to affect every interaction and every decision which is then made going forward.
Yeah.
So did that answer your
It did.
question?
Yeah, because it gets
Okay.
exactly at what I talk a little bit about is that, like, clothes speak a language.
Mm,
And you've gotten into this space where there is a certain energy that is connected to these choices that we make about our clothing and how we're
mm,
putting it out into the world. And the messages then that are being communicated about who we are through these choices. And because we are relational beings,
mm,
everything is done in relationship. And so when
mm,
you've made those choices for yourself to wear the comfortable clothing, the color that suits you, the appropriate, nature for where you're going that day, all these things, like you had your beautiful checklist of things to anticipate and try to really set yourself up for success. That's creating the best version of you to be in relationship with other people, so that when
mm.
they pass you in the hallway or at the coffee shop or wherever on the street you're driving along, they're getting that best version of you. And they're not
Yes.
getting the frenzied, anxious, grasping, exhausted version, even if you may feel a little
Right.
bit of that on the inside, right? But at least you're
Yes.
trying to put out in the world this
Yeah.
version of yourself that is grounded, is true, is confident, is feeling more powerful, right? Like all of these things. And
Mm,
I fervently believe, and I want to hear from you and your experience with your clients, when people really embrace these choices and getting dressed and understand the messages that our clothing sends,
mm.
it really can be an additional tool in our tool belt for, like, the world is your oyster kind of a thing, right? So
Right.
would you agree with me on that? Like, where have you seen examples? I'm just curious about your reactions.
Absolutely. I have a client actually, and she doesn't mind me talking about this. I have
Okay.
quite a few clients that like me to be very confidential because they
Sure.
don't want other people to know when these transitions are happening in their
Sure.
lives. And so they're sort of preparing in advance. But this client, she's, oh my goodness, so inspiring, so motivating. And every time I work with her, she has she's someone who juggles, 20 things all at once. But
Mm.
most entrepreneurs, I find, business women who have started their own businesses or companies, they are so mission driven
Yeah.
that they're often looking for guidance, and very quickly, or in a way that they need to get their message across, but no, they can't do it themselves. So this particular client, she owns her own olive oil business. It is called Zaze,
Cool.
Zaazey. She is just this trailblazing woman, and she believes 100% in equal employment. She's someone who pays very fairly, and she hires a lot of refugees coming into Turkey, and all of her olive groves are in Turkey. So she's controls everything from distribution to, she's
Mm.
got her fingers in everything. But her goal with her personal brand was, I need to elevate this. How can I do that but still feel, again, authentic, genuine, natural, and portray that I am a woman who is of substance. I am a woman who supports women. How do I dress, but also have that reflect my brand? And what does that look like? So what we talked about is, well, when you dress, how can you bring that feel of this international brand and make it translate in a profile picture? And I'm just providing one example.
Sure.
So we worked on, she had this beautiful traditional dress, which was tailored made for her, black with golden embroidery. And so we took profile photographs actually in this sort of really clear white space with beautiful lighting. And it just helped create this glow around her.
Mm.
The pictures came out better than I could have imagined. And now when you see her profile picture, you think, yes, this is a woman who seems like she is doing something. She is making an impact, and she is reflecting this international kind of feel, this international type of sort of grounded essence to her brand and looking approachable at the same time. And I think that trying to make sure you get all of these emotions in one, and I'm just using a profile picture as an example, it can be tricky, but it's once you really figure it out, and through dressing, through style, how you style your hair, how you style your and I feel like I'm speaking to women predominantly here. Would you say that's a
Sure,
core
sure.
listening group? So even your makeup and any gender you are, right? The
Yeah.
way you keep your nails, the way you keep your shoes, the way everything. If you have a standard and you know those words around how to put it together, then it's so much easier to dress yourself and style yourself.
You just spoke my mission, Jan. I love it. That was beautiful, because I really do. I believe that. I believe that when people can harness those decisions, it's like they come into their essence, right? And all the things, whether it's their business to their families to, all the layers of who we are, it all comes like in sync with each other. And I like you, I know I've witnessed that with clients, and it's really a powerful moment to sort of watch somebody, to capture this picture, to have that essence really be nailed, because that's how we all deserve to feel and show up in the world. And so the work that you're doing, I just think is so important, and it's so interesting, and it really does complement and support this holistic sense of like, we all deserve to show up in the best versions of ourselves. And people like you are there to help with this. And I really want listeners today to really see the value of not just hiring a consultant, because lots of people have different belief systems around that, but to sort of see the larger perspective that you bring to this, and the sensitivity with which you honor that with your clients and work through these, because it's not a one-shot wonder. Like, you're working with people over time to really achieve these goals. And I think it's wonderful. I am so honored to be your friend, and so proud to watch this journey of how you really bring this out in people. I think it's so special. And for anyone listening, if you're remotely curious to the work that Jan does, Jan, will you please tell our listeners today how they can connect with you, how they can find you, and learn all about you even more?
Of course, of course. And before I go into that, I have to interject this
Please.
subject. So I am pregnant, right? It's my first child, and I think that there are many women out there who can relate, but sometimes when you have to pivot, maternity wear is one of those times when you have to pivot, and trying to figure out, how do I still bring my personal brand to this and style to carrying a child, to when you're carrying a child. I am finding this another pivot, another challenge. And so And I say, oh my goodness, so many rules of etiquette go out the window because you just can't control a lot sometimes with what's happening internally. So yes, anyway, if you would like to get in touch with me, please just go to my website, because you can contact me. You can find everywhere that you can follow me. My website is better-professional.com. Easy.
Perfect. Perfect.
Very easy. better-professional.com.
And I'll include all this in the show notes so that you guys have this to reference back to. But Jan, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your insight, your wisdom, your joy that you bring. And it is just so much fun to have you on the
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for inviting me on the show, Maria.
Loved it. And you guys, we will hopefully see you next time. Thanks so much for listening today. If you enjoyed what you've heard, I would appreciate you taking the time to leave a review on the podcasting platform you're using, and share this episode with others who you think might really enjoy these conversations about personal style. For more information all about MFD Style services, you can find me on the web at mfdstyle.com, on Instagram at mfd_style, where I post almost 5 days a week, or send me an email at maria@mfdstyle.com. I also have a weekly email I send to subscribers, so I will include the link to that sign up in the show notes. So until next time, friends, remember to love yourself and then love yourself some more.